Hello, welcome to the Manasplained podcast. I'm Connor. Today I'll be talking about the deck I built for Palladia-Mors. Palladia-Mors, like all the other Elder Dragons from the original Legends, are 8 mana creatures that you have to pay 3 during your upkeep or you sacrifice them. And they're 7/7s and they have flying and something else. And Palladia-Mors' something else is trample. Great! So what I decided to do for this deck is, because there's not a lot of super crazy cool fancy stuff you can do with this, is that just legendary Naya Dragon Tribal. It's the best I could come up with. I love Naya, favorite color combination by far, and so I thought, let's go legendary tribal with it and see how that goes, and I'm pretty happy with what I was able to come up with. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps with the algorithm promoting these videos, and I always love talking to everybody down in the comments after they go up. So for the deck breakdown, we got 20 theme cards, which are all the legendary dragons, 6 sub-theme, which are a bunch of anthems to help with the go-wide strategy, and then 2 protection spells, which are probably not what you're expecting. And then to keep the deck running smoothly, 12 draw, 13 ramp, 13 removal, 2 wipes, and 40 lands. It's a lot of draw, a lot of ramp, a lot of removal, just to help keep churning through. And a couple of those removal spells are on dragons, so they're repeatable on like attack triggers and stuff like that, which is awesome. And then the ramp, you need a lot of ramp. Dragons are very expensive, and this deck has a pretty high curve, which is also why we have a ton of lands. And all that together means we have 9 crossover cards, which is so good. That's one off what we're looking for. Tribal decks tend to be higher than this, but because we're running a bunch of legendary dragons, you tend to not get as many utility creatures like a Rex Sage or something like that. They tend to have more unique or straightforward effects that won't fit into the standard ramp, draw, and removal categories, but some of them do have pretty good removal, and one of them does have some pretty good ramp stapled onto them. So yeah, I'm super happy with how this deck came together, and like all the different categories and stuff. It came together very well. And time to go through all of those dragons in no particular order. I didn't group them in any specific way. I just put them in order from smallest to biggest in mana cost. So the first 4 I'm going to go over is Ao the Dawn Sky, which when it dies you get to choose one. So look at the top 7 cards and put any total number of permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. And it's non-lands, unfortunately, but you could get out some small stuff, but that's not what you're probably going to do. If Ao dies, you're going to put 2 1/1 counters on on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle. So if Ao dies, your entire board gets a lot bigger. Your commander already has trample, so has good use for those counters. Dromoka the Eternal, whenever a dragon you control attacks, bolster 2, which that is insane. That is so much bolstering. That's so many 1/1 counters all over the place. It's going to be crazy. Ganax, whenever a dragon enters the battlefield, make a treasure token, so that's a good amount of ramp there. And then Kura the Boundless Sky, another one of if it dies, something happens. And you can either search your library for up to 3 land cards and put them into your hand, or you could create an XX spirit creature token where X is the number of lands you control. Depending on how many lands you have out, you might make like a 10/10 or something. But finding those 3 lands that are any lands, not just basics, might be what you need to really like take control of the game, because you could get some pretty powerful lands if you had some kind of strategy like that going. But in this deck, you're probably just going to get something like a Myriad Landscape, a Krosan Verge, just some good ramp lands. Some more dragons. Rith Liberated Primeval is protection and makes some dragon tokens if a creature opponent control was dealt excess damage this turn. So if they're chump blocking, you get some dragons, which means if they don't chump block, you get to hit them. It's a very cool card. It's very awesome. Scanos Dragonheart. Whenever it attacks, it gets +X+X, where X is a grace power among other dragons you control, and dragon cards in your graveyard. So if you have a 6/6 out, like Inferno the Starmounts, or something like Thraxus the Butcher, doubling the power of each of your dragons you control whenever it attacks. So you can stack it so Thraxus doubles your power of, say, like an Inferno that you pumped a bunch of mana into. Then your Scanos Dragonheart it's doubled to 8, could get another 12 or 13 off your Inferno the Starmounts. Oh my god, it's absolutely wild. And Inferno the Starmounts is interesting because if you plus it a couple times to get it to 9, so if you spend 3 mana on it to get it to 9, and then Thraxus doubles it to 18, you spend 2 more, so you spent 5 mana to get it to the 20, and then you can hit somebody for 20 damage in addition to the combat. Oh my god, Inferno the Starmounts with like damage, power and toughness doubling effects like Thraxus is so good. As we keep moving on, we got Jugan the Rising Star, which when it dies, you put 5/1/1 counters on any number of target creatures you control. You distribute them, so If you have 2 creatures out, you could give 3 and 2, whatever. I wish it was 5 on each of them. That'd be crazy, but no, you only get 5 counters total. But that's fine. Corvath Brightflame lets you search up Sylvia Brightspear, and Sylvia Brightspear gives all of your dragons double strike, which is super awesome. Lathless Dragon Queen, whenever a non-token dragon enters battlefield, you make a dragon. So just giving all of your dragons extra bodies when they enter, and then has an Anthem effect on her that you can pump mana into. Its fire breathing effect, but it gives to all your dragons, which is crazy. And then the newer Palladia-Mors, the Ruiner, has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet, and Flying Vigilance Trample. It's a great blocker. It's a hexproof blocker if you're until it's blocked one thing. I wish it said has hexproof as long as it hasn't dealt damage to a player yet. That way you could just have a up as a hexproof blocker, but oh well. Rith the Awakener, one of my favorite dragons ever, because when it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 3, and if you do, put a 1/1 green sapling creature token on the battlefield for each permanent of that color. So it just starts feeding into itself, where you make a bunch of green saplings, then you can pick green next time, you make even more saplings, and it's just awesome. I've always wanted to make a sapling tribal deck with either Rith at the helm or Tana the Bloodsower at the helm. I haven't fully decided yet. Rorik's Bladewing, 6 mana, 6/5 with flying and haste. It's whatever. Rise through the Falling Star. Whenever it dies, it deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. I didn't put that in the board wipe category because it has to die and you have no way of killing it yourself. But if your opponent decides to block it, it'll deal 5 damage to just almost every creature that isn't yours, essentially. And then Yosei the Morningstar. When it dies, it basically makes someone skip a turn, essentially. They skip their untapped step, you tap down 5 other things. So you're going to be attacking the player with Yosei who cannot afford for Yosei to die, which just means you're going to get free damage with it. And then the last dragons I have in the category, we have Atarkar, World Render, Dragonlord Atarkar, Drakuseth, and Velomachus. Drakuseth and Dragonlord both are removal when they attack, which is phenomenal. Atarkar gives your dragons double strike, which is also amazing. And then Velomachus Lorehold. When it attacks, you look at the top 7 of your library, and you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from them with a power less than Velomachus. The rest go to the bottom of your library in a random order. Holy crap, this can cast your ramp spells, your removal spells. You get like a Sky Shroud claim off this, or a Beast Within off this. Oh my god, Velomachus is crazy. And Velomachus would be a really fun kind of Dragon's Approach deck as well. So I made the sub-theme all of the Anthem-like effects, just affect all of your dragons and let them be that much more dangerous. These are the anthems that care about your dragons being legendary. Day of Destiny, +2/+2, Flowering the White Tree, +2/+1, and Ward. Day of Destiny, so much worse than Flowering of the White Tree. Flowering of the White Tree is a wild card, but Day of Destiny, also a good card. Getting your dragons that much bigger, being able to hit that much harder. And with the Commander having Trample, having these Anthem effects helps get through for Commander damage. In addition to those, we have some anthems that care if your creatures are dragons. So like I said before, Sylvia Brightspear can search up Corvath Brightflame when it enters the battlefield, and it gives dragons your team controls double strike, which is ridiculous. And then Crucible of Fire gives all of your dragons +3/+3 for 4 mana, that is so much power and toughness boost. And the last 2 in this category have multiple effects. Mirari's Wake being an anthem and ramp, and Vanquisher's Banner being an anthem and card draw. Both these cards are amazing at 5 mana. They're what you want to be doing. They set your board up for being able to either rebuild, or all of your dragons now cantrip with Vanquisher's Banner, which is super powerful. And Mirari's Wake essentially doubling your mana is bonkers. So because the Commander, not really vital to the strategy, just a big scary dragon, the protection I decided for more of a go wide theme. Those 2 being Flowering of the White Tree and Rith Flimmerated Primeval. So Flowering of the White Tree, Ward 1, Rith, Ward 2, just make it so that your creatures are that much harder to remove with targeted removal. So we have big creatures, and a lot of big creatures, so since we're in green, we have access to amazing card draw. To start us off, we have Hunter's Insight and Hunter's Prowess, and if you have a creature with double strike, these get that much stronger because whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, this turn you draw that many cards. So put this on your Commander, maybe it has double strike and it has Trample, maybe you're doubling the power of it. Yeah, you're going to be drawing so many cards. And Hunter's Prowess gives +3/+3 and Trample. So if you have one of your really big dragons out there that doesn't have Trample, you can now give it Trample so that you're guaranteed to draw some cards. These are all the enchantments that draw cards. There are a couple creatures that have power 3 or less, and that won't be able to trigger Garruk's Uprising or Colossal Majesty, but there's only a couple. The majority of the creatures in this deck will be able to trigger all of them, either costing 5 mana. Every dragon in this deck costs at least 5 mana for Up the Beanstalk, and then almost all of them have at least 4 power, so you can draw cards with Garruk's, Elemental Bond, and Colossal Majesty. Also, Garruk's Uprising giving trample helps with a lot of these big dragons able to get in for damage. The 2 artifacts that draw cards in this deck, Vanquisher's Banner makes all of your dragons cantrip, and Dragon's Horde, whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you put a gold counter on it, and then you can tap it to remove a gold counter from it to then draw a card, or you can add a mana of any color. This card is awesome. It's so good. And I'm surprised they didn't do a Lord of the Rings. I mean, I guess it'd be from The Hobbit, but you could do like Smaug's Horde for this. I mean, it'd be perfect. But yeah, this card's awesome. And then finally, we have the instants and sorceries that will draw you cards. They're all great. Rishkar's Expertise, Roar of the Wild Speaker, and Soul's Majesty will draw you like 5 or 6 or 7 cards pretty consistently. And then Rishkar's Expertise lets you get one of your 5 cost dragons back out after you've drawn those cards, which is awesome. And then Harmonize, just 4 mana, draw 3 cards, is amazing. So for the ramp, we're in Naya, which means we have access to green, which means we get land ramp, which I'm just so happy about. Love land ramp. It's consistent. It's good. It doesn't go away. It's the best. So the 4 and 3 mana ramp, we got Skyshroud, Claim, Ranger's Path, Kadama's Reach, and Cultivate. All to get you some lands, but Skyshroud and Rangers can get you non-basic forests to help you color fix, because there is a lot of colored pips required for this deck. Some more cards that do that: Into the North, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits, and Farseek can all find you lands that tap for more than 1 colored mana, while Rampant Growth only finds you a basic. And then Soul Ring taps to add 2 mana of 2 colorless mana. That is, this card is, everyone knows this card's broken. And then you've already seen all these, but these are just some more ramp spells. They're great. I really like Ganax here because in addition to being the 5 mana dragon to trigger Up the Beanstalk, and then 3 mana for Elemental Bond, or 3 power for Elemental Bond, making you those treasures just makes all of your dragons essentially cost 1 less. So for the removal, you're going to need to be able to remove important stuff from your opponent's side of the board. People are not going to target you with their like attacks often, because you're probably going to have some big blockers back on defense and stuff like that, but they might have some like important blockers like a Baleful Strix, or they might have a Propaganda out. They might have, I don't know, what else could be, like a Silent Arbiter. So you got to be able to deal with all of these things that could disrupt the deal big combat damage with dragon strategy. So Dragon Tempest and Sarkhan's Unsealing. Whenever a dragon enters, you get to deal damage with Dragon Tempest. It also gives your dragons haste, which is awesome. And then Sarkhan's Unsealing. Whenever you cast a spell with, and the creature has 4, 5, or 6 power, you have to deal 4 damage to any target. But if you cast a creature spell with 7 power or greater, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature or planeswalker they control. So Sarkhan's Unsealing, great targeted removal. Most of the dragons in this deck have at least power 4. Some of them do have power 7, so you're going to be able to deal a lot of damage and then board wipe if you need to, which is absolutely phenomenal. These are the remove any permanent cards. Stroke of Midnight can't hit a land, but the important thing is they get rid of all of the shenanigans from your opponent's board while leaving a 3/3 token that cannot block your dragons. Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, 2 of the best removal spells in the game. If someone has a pesky indestructible blocker that you can't get past, you can just exile it so you can start hitting them in the face again. And then there's all the artifact and enchantment removal. Dismantling Wave, a 3-for-1, it's ridiculous. Hull Breach being a 2-for-1, also ridiculous. And then Atraxas Fall can hit a creature with flying, so if they have a big creature with flying out, you can get rid of that, so your creatures with flying can be the only things out there that are dealing damage. And then Return to Nature, the exile target card from a graveyard, has come up way more times than I thought it ever would. And then finally, Dragonlord Atarka and Drakuseth Maw of Flames, every time they attack, you'll start removing stuff. It's kind of nuts. So we're going wide with a lot of dragons, and I could have ran a bunch of like earthquake effects and stuff like that to hit non-flying creatures, but I didn't want this deck just to be a crap load of board wipes and then some dragons, because that would just be unfun and boring. So, but I do need some board wipes, because sometimes they're the only thing that can answer a really like drastic board state. And so these are the 2 one-sided board wipes I decided to go with. Urza's Ruinous Blast, it won't hit your opponent's commanders, which is okay, but it'll hit basically everything else, which is good enough because we're going legend tribal kind of theme here. It's the perfect card to add. And then Sarkon's Unsealing, again, there are some dragons in here that do cost 7 mana, including our commander, so it's easy to board wipe with it. As for the lands, it's a Naya deck, which means we're running a lot of typed lands, even if they enter tapped, because they're fetchable with things like Croson Verge or Skyshroud Claim and stuff like that. But there are 2 lands in the deck that are a little spicy, and I'm excited to go over them. Those lands being Spinerock Knoll and Mosswort Bridge. So they have Hideaway. So when the land enters, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down under Spinerock Knoll or Mosswort Bridge, and then later on, if you meet some kind of condition, for Spinerock Knoll, it's if an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn, and then with Mosswort Bridge, it's if you have a total power of 10 or greater among your creatures on your board, you can then pay a red or green, tap it, and then cast that spell. And with all the expensive dragons we have, being able to cheat them out with Spinerock Knoll or Mosswort Bridge is going to be amazing. And then Haven of the Spirit Dragon, you can sacrifice it to get a dragon out of your graveyard, which, if you really need to, that's an awesome option to have. And then cards like Highland Forest, running a ton of cards like that, so cards like Croson Verge can then search them up. And I say it in all my videos, but the Battle Bond lands like Spectator Seeding. Wizards, please put the multiplayer cards in the multiplayer products. Thank you. So for the maybes, this deck was kind of hard to make cuts for. I decided to cut all the dragons that cost less than 5, just for up the beanstalk reasons. Some of those dragons that cost 4 or less, they just weren't impactful enough for what I was trying to do, so I was fine cutting them. And then, yeah, I also just cut some other stuff that you would expect to see, because I wanted every card to be a legendary dragon, except for Sylvia Brightspear, because the other dragon fetches her up and I needed to leave her in the deck for that flavor reason. So the dragons I ended up cutting from the deck, Atsushi, just because it only costs 4 mana, and then Verix Bladewing, because it only costs 4 mana. You can Verix Bladewing, you can kick it to get a Karox Bladewing, but the kicker wouldn't like come into effect for like an Up the Beanstalk thing, because Up the Beanstalk checks the card's mana value, not how much you spent to cast the thing. And then Dragon Lord Dramoka was like $20 or something, and Cloth Unrivaled Ancient was like $40 or something, so I cut them due to price reasons. And then the other 6 cards in the maybe board, Goblin Archomancer and Nogi, they're not dragons. Even though they're very powerful, I decided to cut them. Lightning Greaves, again, the commander isn't the main theme of the deck here, so because of that, not running Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots. Orb of Dragonkind is awesome, but because we're in green, I didn't want to run any mana rocks outside of like the ones that are really good, like the Dragon Horde one and Soul Ring. Spitflame, it's a great card, but if it costed 2 mana, then it would be broken. But at 3 mana, it's just not good enough. And then Cloth's Will, again, it costs 4 mana to destroy 1 artifact or enchantment, 5 mana to destroy 2. It does have the other effect where you can pay X to deal damage to each creature without flying, and if you have your commander, you can do both, so that's very powerful. But like I said, I'm not really looking to run all those effects, and Cloth's Will is just so mana inefficient for blowing up artifacts and enchantments. So what did you think of the deck? I was really worried when putting this deck together when I first saw Palladia-Mors, because she's just a flying 7/7 trampler. Not a lot special going on there. The upkeep cost is brutal, and so I was really worried about putting the deck together, but then I thought, you know what? Legendary Dragon Tribal. That sounds super fun. So that's what I went with. And I found a bunch of dragons that I really like. Drakuseth, one of my favorite cards. It's just an absolute house. Played it a lot in an arena brawl, and it would, whenever it entered the battlefield, if I was able to give it haste, it would just ruin people's days. Great card. I have a Joyrus Suspend deck where you can suspend out Drakuseth, and it's just so much fun. But yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. These are all my socials. Twitter is where I post when these videos go up. I'll eventually start making content for TikTok and Reddit, and then Architect and Moxfield is where all these deck lists live. So thanks for watching, and as always, get building, splainers. Alright, that is so